It's not the strongest of the species that survives. It's those most adaptable to change. We can be like the magpie, distracted by all those shiny things. And sometimes you need to focus on strengthening your core and what you do best.
On this week's episode of Garry Talks, I'm joined by Elaine Carroll, CEO of the All-Ireland Business Foundation, which is the driving force behind one of the country's most respected organisations for recognising and supporting Irish business excellence. With a passion for leadership, community and continuous growth, Elaine shares both her personal journey and advice for those looking to succeed in business today.
It is so important to be investing in yourself because, your money can go anyway. But if you invest in your own head and your own brains and your own knowledge, nobody can take that away from you. I woke up one morning saying I would never again give anybody the power to do that to me.
This is a GK Media podcast. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Garry Talks. Before we dive in, a massive thank you for tuning in. Last year, Garry Talks hit #1 in Apple Podcasts entrepreneurship category here in Ireland. And we even reached #3 in business. That's all thanks to you, our incredible listeners. This year, we'd love to go one step further and take that #1 business spot. So, if you can support the show in any way, we'd really appreciate it. Whether it's sharing this episode, leaving a review, or just telling a friend, every little bit helps. Each episode costs around €1,000 to produce, and we've now released over 100 shows, all in the hope that these conversations deliver something valuable for you to invest back into yourself. So, follow us on social media, drop us a message, and don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to support the show further. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoy today's episode of Garry Talks.
This podcast is part of the GK Media Studios Creators Network, helping people tell their stories. Become a storyteller today and learn about our podcaster network at gkmediastudios.com.
Elaine, you're very welcome to GK Media Studios. Thank you for joining me on Garry Talks.
Delighted to be here, Garry.
Well, thank you so much for making the journey to Galway today to visit our studios. I had invited you up because I wanted to give you the grand tour of our new studio, Studio 2, and show you around and get you to meet the team and show off our awards that we've won from the All-Ireland Business Foundation.
Yeah, and I tell you, ever so impressive. This is coming from a tip lady now into Galwegian territory, but coming in the Hall of Fame in there is so impressive, with the various celebrities that you've had in and up and rising podcasters and media personalities. But also what was really pride of place was seeing your 1, 2, 3 years in a row Business All-Star accreditation as Digital Marketing Agency of the Year, but also your most recent accreditation as Podcast Studio of the Year, which I suppose is testament to the evolution of GK Media.
When we won that award this year, massive buzz amongst the team. National Podcast Studio of the Year.
Well, it's hard earned, Garry. Now we can't let our listeners under any illusion.
No, it was hard earned, huge investment, but it's great. And this is the thing about being involved in the All Ireland Business Foundation. We have won the 3 in a row Connacht Digital Agency of the Year.
We've done the hat trick.
We've done the hat trick, but it is this thing of every year we're working hard to make sure that we can succeed and win the following year. So there's this constant checking in on ourselves, measuring, are we making that little 1% improvement on a consistent, constant basis? So we're in a place where we deserve to get up there again on the podium and fight for the position to win that award again. So it's great because you win the award and it's huge excitement and celebration, but it's like, okay, we want to win it again. So we got to
go backwards. You can only go forwards.
Keep going forward.
You have to add to it. Yeah. And I suppose that's the thing about being a business owner and an entrepreneur. So often we get caught up on, the hamster wheel and the doing and things are so busy and getting things out. But actually, having to stop and pause and reflect as to where you are now, what got you here. But very important even to verbalize and think about where you're going to in the future. Because look back at the last 10 years alone, the amount of change that there has been between Brexit and COVID and, the Ukraine crisis and then, Iran, Palestine and everything in between. So much agility is required of businesses now. So therefore, we can never become complacent and reactive. We need to be more proactive than ever. And I think that's something that the Business All-Stars accreditation process allows companies to stop, to pause, to reflect back, look at your foundations to what got you here, what you need to move forward with, maybe what you need to shed and not bring forward with you. And where do the opportunities lie on the horizon as well? Because look, between social media and digital and globalization and internationalization, the world has become such a smaller place now, compared to where it was, 5-10 years ago doing business.
And this is what we were talking about before as well. And you gave me a great line about Charles Darwin. But, we were talking about the companies that we've noticed over the last decade or so that have done really well and grown are those who've constantly been adapting.
Yes, like as Darwin said, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, it's those most adaptable to change. And that's something that we're totally seeing in the business landscape as well, is that, look, maybe once upon a time you're doing this, but now all of a sudden competitors have opened up in this country and that country, and now they're being seen online because they're digital presence, and you're not safe doing what you're doing anymore. So that's why it's so important to always be in the know. But also it's important as well to stay in your lane and to focus and not to be distracted, because sometimes we can be like the magpie, distracted by all those shiny things. And sometimes you need to focus on strengthening your core and what you do best, and this word competition, or what are the competitors doing? Competition is healthy. It's important to know what they're doing, but it's also important not to be too distracted by them and to focus on what you're best at and your USP. Because if you're doing something, you're doing it well, create your niche in that area and be known for something, really strong.
It's funny because we had a team meeting this morning and there was 3 questions I posed to the team. It was like, what can we start doing? What can we keep doing? And what will we stop doing? But one of the things to come out of it was the 3 key areas that we work in, which would be video production, podcasts, and social media management, would be that we just keep upskilling and improving ourselves in those services and the equipment we use and the technology we use, rather than shooting for everything out there.
That's it, yeah. And even to map things out, right? And you don't have to map things out, say, for 5 years or have an idea, but just say, hang on here, what's the focus for the next 30 days or the next 90 days? Or if you have a project on, say, right, this is what we need to achieve, but then break it back into doable and achievable steps, because there's nothing worse than the feeling of overwhelm. Because if you think, oh, jeepers, how am I going to get all this? And all this is to be done in the second half of the year and all of these KPIs, this, that, and the other. But actually, if you break it back into achievable steps, but something that's very important as well is knowing that every single human being has a different modus operandi. So some people work better under pressure, and pressure can be good. And there's good forms of stress, but there's also bad forms of stress as well. And sometimes it's, hang on here, what can I do now, which will mean that I'll be able to maybe focus more on other things when the time comes to it, But all of the time, it is so important to be investing in yourself, because I think if you invest money in, I won't say shares or a bank or something like that, your money can go anyway. But if you invest in your own head and your own brains and your own knowledge, nobody can take that away from you. So it's important to think of the compound value effect of you investing in yourself as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. For those who don't know about the All Ireland Business Foundation, can you give us like the 60-second pitch?
Yeah, so look, my name is Elaine Carroll and I'm the CEO and co-founder of the All Ireland Business Foundation with my business partner and colleague, Kapil Khanna. So if you're to say to me, look, what is AIBF? So we're an independent national accreditation body and university, and we're tasked with enterprise development and the promotion of best-in-class businesses as business all-stars. So when you think of it, there's 3 core principles or pillars behind the accreditation process. They're trust, performance, and customer centricity. So we acknowledge and we adjudicate companies through a rigorous process to see if they can be acknowledged as business all-stars. And I think if we reflect back on the process, it's not just about the numbers and the figures and there's auditors and from an accounting perspective for that, but we look at how trustworthy are you? How do you treat your buyers, your suppliers, and your staff and your team? Because they are so, so crucial and critical. And I think one way, I suppose, of summarising it is that we are the nation's symbol of trust. Trust is the most valuable currency in any business. People buy from companies and people that they like and trust. They'll work for companies and people that they like and trust. They'll do business with and invest in companies and people that they like and trust. So we're on a mission at AIBF, and that's to build a meritocracy and a tribe of best-in-class businesses that deserve recognition based on those 3 core parameters of trust, performance, and customer centricity.
And what's great is it's not about the size of the business.
Correct.
It's not about the balance sheet.
Yeah.
It's about those 3 core values.
Yeah, it's about how you conduct yourself in your business. So we've got people that are solo entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
We've got people that have, 1,000 headcount in a company. that's besides the point. You can have somebody that's hosting and running their business just as ethically well and with so much, good governance and goodwill and standards and quality behind it. They might have 2 or 3 people in the company, just as much as you might have somebody that has 200 or 300 people in the company. So any company from any industry, from all 32 counties in Ireland, can apply to see if they can be accredited and recognised as a business all-star.
I remember when I was doing my initial interview seeking accreditation, and I was speaking to Kieran Ring at the time, and he was asking me questions about the behind the scenes operations of our business and how we prepare for a plan B scenario and a plan C scenario, and questions that no one had ever asked me before. And we didn't even have a roadmap when we were coming up with these solutions. It was very much from learning in the field and saying, okay, we need to have this in place for the next time and so on. That I found it really interesting, where even I was getting a great insight into how we actually operate the business and have systemized it without realizing, because it just was built kind of naturally over the years. An evolution, exactly, yeah. And I found that absolutely fascinating. And then there's great pride as well when you realize.
When you stop, and when you press that pause button and you're asked a question, you reflect back and think, oh my God, I actually didn't realize until I had to spit it out or I had to answer it that we did X, Y, or Z, or that we achieved this, or we completed that project. And there's a great sense of pride and satisfaction. And it's not all about the big, massive wins. It's acknowledging those milestones along the way. It could be, hang on here, do you know what? We got a really nice thank you card from this, and they really appreciated this project or that project. Or it's those other wins as well along the way that's important as well. Because there's a compound effect there. If you acknowledge those small milestones along the way, they'll compound then into future gains as well.
Yeah, it's like you said before, Rome wasn't built in a day. It was brick by brick, day by day.
The Romans were laying one brick at a time, day in, day out for years.
Yeah. You've had a really fun, colourful, adventurous career. I mean, you've gotten to live in Australia and everything.
Yeah.
You studied in UL.
That's right, yeah. So I did my business studies degree, Bachelor of Business Studies degree in German in UL, and I majored with entrepreneurship. And I loved that side of it. And, a lot of the stats say, look, I was the first grandchild in the family. I was the firstborn. I was female. So I think it was always in me. I loved the buying and the selling and the wheeling and the dealing and things like that.
Did you come from a business background?
So my family, my father's self-employed. Granddad would have had a construction business. We're farmers at home. So there would have been a lot of elements of maybe not your 9 to 5, should we say, corporate or business job. So I suppose that led in one way that when I came to applying for my job or seeing what I wanted to do after, UL, it was like, the safe, pensionable route. And, this is kind of where you were kind of going down the line. But I didn't quite know what I wanted to do when it came to, it was called the milk round at the time, what you wanted to apply for after you had your degree done. So
the milk round?
The milk round, yeah. So in other words, all the companies were coming in, inviting people to apply for jobs. Yeah, so that I think the phrase is that they'd milk you when you're But anyway, applying for them. So I would have applied, say, for 3 or 4 of the big 4 from an accountancy perspective. And there was one application form that was my last to fill out, and I barely made the deadline. But I said, you know what? If I applied to become an accountant, do I want 3.5 more years of exams? But do I love it? And the answer to that was no. Plus, you were tied into a contract for 3.5 years. And I think it was that element that said, hang on here, but if I go down the tax route, and if I can get straight into charter tax, it's actually as soon as you do the exams, you're qualified. And I said, right, with my exemptions from UL and this, that, and the other, I was great at working out what the least amount that I needed to do strategically to get the furthest down the line. And I was always great at that from a study side of things. I was the lucky one. People said to me, Elaine, what are you studying? Well, I said, well, I'm not going near that chapter or this chapter. Well, the probability is if we leave that out, because that came up last year, I always worked out what was going to come up. That was my forte, And there was no money back guarantees.
Yeah, bring you to the bookies someday.
That strategy, yeah. But so I applied to EY for charter tax, and I was very fortunate that I got it. And I didn't have to go to Dublin. I actually got it in the Limerick office because some other employees had left to go out lecturing full time and other ventures. So there was an immediate vacancy there. And normally you have to kind of to do your chartered accountancy before you go on to do the tax. So I was very fortunate that I got in, and I had really, really fantastic mentors in there. Fast forward, I did the exams in a 1.5 years, which would normally take maybe 2 or 3 years. So when people were doing repeats or other people were off enjoying their summer, I was actually doing another year of exams because I didn't want to spend another year studying. I said, right, let's cram into the 2 or 3 months instead of spending the next year doing it, which means that I can earn more money quicker. So I did that. I think like most people, you want to travel and I wanted to travel. So I was very fortunate that within that Big 4 environment, I was facilitated to take the comments down to Australia, down to work for them.
Because there was
in
the
Melbourne.
period, certainly in Ireland, where everyone was going to Australia and kind of the
And you know what? I was really lucky because I was going to Australia with a job.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to necessarily go the backpacker route. So I went out with a job, which meant that I could take time off to travel going out, time off to travel, come home, but be exposed to a totally different work environment. I remember the very first day actually got into work, and it was at 11, I was at 118 Exhibition Street down in Melbourne. And I was like, where are all the files kept? Because in our offices was, rooms of files. Like, oh no, this is a paperless office. I was saying like, oh my God. I was like, where's the partner's office? Oh, that's his desk over there, but he's only in 3 days a week. And I was thinking, oh my God, is this a way of working? Like there's no files, nobody has an office, but it was just totally different. But it's fast forward then years, that's exactly how we're operating here now, But that time in Australia was absolutely priceless. The exposure I got, and I'm still in great contact with so many people that I met through my travels and interactions down there. Came back to Ireland then and joined the banking industry after that. And the way it was one of those decisions that it was the best and worst decision in my life.
Yeah.
It was a decision I made for very much for financial reasons. And this whole thing around, the boom, bust, property side of things as well. I made a career move based on financial decisions and financial decisions only. It was the worst decision because I lost my shirt, and there's a whole other podcast in that. But on the second side, I woke up one morning saying I would never again give anybody the power to do that to me. What happened to me from that side of things?
A well-known Irish bank that doesn't exist anymore.
Absolutely. So I was headhunted to help clean out their loan book and, just a few other things like that. But it didn't work out in my favour.
Yeah. And you had made investments through their guidance, shall we say.
Absolutely, 100%.
And that's where you lost your shirt, as you say.
Lost the shirt. And then I said to myself, do you know what? This is never again going to happen to me. I'm actually going to do what I love doing. And I was very lucky throughout my career in parallel to my day job. I'm QFA, qualified financial advisor as well. So I was actually lecturing for the QFAs in subjects like investments, loans, finance. The various enterprise boards, especially Limerick Leo, brought me on board to design and to deliver some start your own business programs and start your own business boot camps. I did a lot of mentoring for them. And also then, I suppose property market was on a high here at one stage in Ireland. So I qualified as an auctioneer and valuer simply because I was...
But that's brilliant, because let's just bring it back. So you're living the life in Australia.
Yeah.
You come back to Ireland because you're given a job in bank.
Great opportunity,
Great opportunity. You took it. You ended up within a couple of years redundant and in debt.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, you went off reinventing yourself.
Yeah, and I suppose, there's one person that I always admired, and I'm just so lucky that I've had great mentors in my life, all my life. And I think this is a lesson for anybody. Sometimes it's about reaching out to somebody that's out there and seeing how they did it and emulating maybe what they did.
Yeah.
And, two people in particular that I would have very lucky to cross paths with, maybe that influenced, where I went at certain stages. One of those people was actually Keith Barry. And I reached out to him, and, I loved how his language patterns, his communication skills, subconscious communication. So I actually would have gone off to the States and trained as a master hypnotherapist. And also, I did my master's.
So people are actually hearing what you did. So you were a mummy now.
Yes.
And you went off.
And
to
I went
Las Vegas.
Yeah, to Las Vegas.
For 3.5 months?
For 3.5 months.
Learning, what you call
NLP, neurolinguistics programming. So it's like the science behind how your brain operates. So in other words, it's really mastering communication, but subconscious communication as well. How you communicate with yourself, with the outside world. But also, and something from an advertising perspective, a communications perspective, influence, even Dale Carnegie's book, gone back years ago, How to Win Friends and Influence People. There's so much in our language, how we talk, our body language expressions. So I actually did a master's in hypnosis as well for suggestive language patterns, understanding it. And I absolutely loved it. So put aside
you crammed in the few months, and you could have done this over years.
So put aside my degree in UL, which was 4 years, my financial advisor exams, which is the bones of another 2 years, my auctioneering and valuing exams. But actually, I have to say that time that I spent on NLP, coaching, all of that side of things actually was more valuable to me from a career perspective than anything.
Stay in Vegas for a minute, because
you want to know, did I win or lose?
Well, I've been to Vegas a few times. It's fun, but you were talking about your husband was over with the buggy and he couldn't go anywhere because you're not really allowed to be going.
So I was saying, right, so my son Jack was less than 2 years old at the time. I said, right, God, been gone from home for about 3 months, would have been a long stint. So my husband said, volunteered, thinking he was doing the right thing, would come over with us, because the accommodation was charged there per room or per bedsit or whatever, rather than per person in the room like it is here. So that was all theoretically very fine. So they had to be back in Ireland within 2 months because Jack, my son, was turning 2 at that stage. So it was free flights, only the taxes up until that point in time because the child could sit in your lap. So it had all worked out. So I thought this was great. So when I was going off to studies anyway at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, do my study groups and everything. And I said, that's it, I'm off into the strip now. See you this evening, I'll have a great time. But actually it wasn't so great a time because buggies aren't allowed off the strip in Las Vegas. So you have these beautiful, the Bellagio's, all these fabulous casinos and everything, and you're walking through them pushing a buggy, and the minute he'd look left, right or centre or deviate off the carpeted runway, the security were on top of him saying, sir, back in, he was nearly threatened with social services a few times, and all he wanted to do was to see what was going on in the different areas to spend his time. So that nearly ended up in divorce anyway afterwards. I said, Elaine, that's all the studies there now, you need to put it into practice. So came back to Ireland anyway, and I think that really gave me the confidence to say, do you know what, Elaine, you're really good with people, and I love communication skills, and I love knowing what makes people tick, but getting the best out of people. Numbers to me, yes, they're important, but they're boring to a certain extent, but yet you need somebody with that skill set. So my path crossed with my partner in crime. People say, geez, if I'm 007, he's 008. So with Kapil. And Kapil had come to Ireland from New Delhi, followed his heart and found himself here. And our paths crossed, and we both had very strong business backgrounds, right? But he's got great expertise in the marketing, the online, the digital side, whereas mine was in the people and the communication side. So we had a great commonality, say, for 50%, and then we had our own 40, should we say. And we found that if we went in, looking at a company and helping them or whatever, or doing a consulting project with them, when we worked together, we saw so much more. And it would have been then after that that the heads got together, and we would have consulted with Dr. Briga Hines at the Cambridge Business School at the University of Limerick, who we kept in touch with around the whole creation of the Business All-Stars and the All-Ireland Business Foundation. So that's kind of like a whirlwind as to how it happened. But in essence, we wanted to create an acknowledgement and a recognition program that companies, regardless of shape or size, could be acknowledged for the great work that they're doing. So very often we're busy in the day-to-day mundane stuff, and the time that you might hear feedback is when it's negative feedback, rather than somebody's giving you the pat on the back saying, you know what, you're doing a really good job, you're onto something here, keep going. And I think one case in particular that resonated with me was that recently doing an audit of a gentleman that's been in business 30 years, loads of government contracts and everything, and doing really well. And when he was successful through his All-Star, and I rang him up, and I was chatting to him on the phone, he said, he said, there's only one other person throughout the last 30 years that told me I was doing a good job. And I said, look away, who was that? He said, the tax man, when he sent me an envelope with a window on it. But imagine feeling like that and being an employer of several people, paying it up for 3 decades literally, and not realising or having the opportunity to stop and to pause and to reflect back and say, you know what, I am doing a really good job, and we have seen that if you get the right praise, now not just anybody saying, oh yeah, go on, you're great kind of a thing, but getting the right praise and the right constructive feedback at the right times, it can really make a difference to your next steps forward in business and in life, And when it talks about life as well, it's not that you can separate business from life. There's a full congruency, a 360 between them all, And I have to say, 2 gentlemen brought me on that journey a lot, and one would have been Jerry Duffy. He ran 32 marathons, the 32 days in 32 counties, and we bounced off each other an awful lot at the start of our respective careers and that. But in latter years, my paths crossed about 8 or 9 years ago with Jerry Hussey, performance coach and psychologist. And he would have been, I won't say responsible, but he would have, gone to the Olympics, and when the boxers came back, the likes of Paddy Barnes and all that with their medals, Jerry was the gentleman that came off that plane with them, being their performance psychologist. So my paths crossed with Jerry a number of years ago. And he's been a huge instrumental part in changes that I've made in my life and asking me the right questions, at the right times, and I suppose one thing that I would know now is that, taking time out, but it's not this big hard fast work and then burn out and take a week or two out. It's actually how the routines that you have on a daily basis and how you incorporate your exercise, your family life, your social life and that connection as well as your work. And it's only when all of those dials connect, and link in rightly that you can be the best version of yourself. And that could be you as a mother or as a father. That could be, you as a daughter or as a sister. That could be you as a CEO or as the mentor for somebody else,
Yeah, that's brilliant. And you mentioned Jerry Duffy. You met Jerry before at a Tony Robbins event.
Yes, yeah, I did years ago, my God, in the Excel Theatre in London, and one of the final days of an event, and you were to kind of to turn around and, give yourself, give a big, hairy, audacious goal or whatever, that you had. And I remember at the time, Jerry's goal was to become a professional speaker on the Irish circuit. And fast forward a couple of years, and we were hosting the first All-Ireland Summit in Croke Park, and Jerry was one of those first speakers that I reached out to, and consistently throughout the years now we've worked with Jerry on goal setting sessions and seminars, and our paths cross consistently. And I think for anybody listening in, it's so important to surround yourself with good people.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to be like, over the top with them, or, you don't have to talk to them every day, but knowing that they're there and they've got your back. And when you need to have a question or when there's something bothering you, someone who can you pick up the phone. And at different stages of your growth and journey, they can be different people.
Yeah, true.
Because right now, maybe my goal is health and fitness and wellness. Maybe next year, it could be something from a business perspective and something else, So it's just having and reaching out to the right people. And I would say always aim really high as you can.
Okay.
So if you want to reach out to somebody, go to the best person you can possibly think of in their field and you'd be surprised how generous that person is with their time and with their energy and with their effort, because I don't think there's anybody that I've reached out to that said no. And if it wasn't, it was just maybe they were going on holidays like you were last week, or the timing was wrong or something. But it's amazing how generous people will be with their time or with their contacts or their connections, and that's one thing about the All-Stars as well. You're part, Garry, of a family that is like over 700 fellow business All-Stars. That's like having direct access to over 700 volumes of Britannica encyclopedias. And you might come to us and say, do you know what, Elaine, I'm thinking of doing this or that. I mightn't have the answer. Kapil mightn't have the answer, but one of your fellow business All-Stars will. So it's only about us saying, hang on here now, God, who could we recommend now for that? So it's amazing when you are part of a community like that, how everybody will watch out for each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that needs to come back into play more often, I think, as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Talk to me about the Tony Robbins event.
Mm-hmm.
What did you get out of that?
So I'm a person, right? I love putting myself in positive, energetic environments, right? If there was a match on in Croke Park tomorrow, if there was something on in Shelburne Park, if there was something on in Punchestown, putting yourself in a particular atmosphere and type of energy is really, really rewarding. For me, I went to Tony Robbins because I was at a crossroads in my life. I said, hang on here, I need a bit of clarity. I need somebody to ask questions of me. Not that I'm going to spit out the answers, but get me thinking, plus his events are very high energy as well. But I love going to events, right? Simply because it's not only saying, hang on here, what ideas can I bring back into maybe our regional entrepreneur meetups and gatherings, maybe our summit, maybe our leaders forum, what other ideas can I get? But equally so, I'm at a stage now, thankfully, just after having hosted the 11th All-Ireland Entrepreneur Summit, we sit back afterwards and we can reflect now and we can say, right, do you know what, lads, we did this right. We did that right. We did this. We improved on that since last year. Wasn't that great feedback? So it's important as well to put yourself and expose yourself to different types of environments, relative to your industry as well.
Yeah. What do you think is the one theme you've seen across successful business leaders in the AIBF?
Okay, well, learning is obviously something that's this insatiable appetite for lifelong learning. But if that's not you, and you might say, "Do you know what, we really need to get on top of AI, we need to be on TikTok, we need to do this, that." Well, you can make sure that now that you're aware, you can make sure you have those resources on board to get it. But if you were to ask me one word, and that's consistency, whatever it is you do, be consistent. If there's a particular messaging, if there's a particular tone, if there's a particular, actions, and if you're hosting maybe events or a podcast or this, well, what's the consistency here? Likewise, no matter what it is you do, I think if it's from a health, the fitness, a sport, whatever, it's no point in having these short bursts in the gym and then blown out for the other 9 or 10 months of the year,
true.
It's what's that consistent approach? So for me, it's actually a daily routine. I think that's what's very important as well. It's owning your morning is very important for me. I'm up before the kids in the morning, and I get 3 mornings a week. I do say a strength class or whatever, but it's just my time to get out and to get.
You're an early bird.
I'm an early bird. Yeah.
What's very early?
So no, I'd wake up. Say I'm up 5:45 every morning.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm up 5:45. As a family, we're sitting down for breakfast, having done, if there's exercise, whatever needs to be done. We've got a bit of a family farm at home. We've got goats, we've got Nelly, and we've got Billy, and we've got a couple of lambs as well. Freya's one of the lambs now. We won't get her mixed up with the Billy goat. And we've got a lovely lifestyle, like that. But it's not without its hard work as well. So the kids are up in the morning, they're feeding the lambs. We've got several dogs, they have to be fed, just different things like that. And
but there's work ethic there.
Yeah, there's a great discipline. So then we're all down for breakfast, say at 7:30, and we go about our different ways, say kind of at 8:30 in the morning. And I'm religiously sitting at my desk, for 9 o'clock in the morning, unless I'm traveling with work or something like that, And then one thing that I learned very much that I'd neglected myself was that have an outlet in the evenings as well. So yeah, the dinner has to be got and this is to be done. And I think taxi is another word that I've tattooed on my forehead as well, But actually, factoring something into your own diary that, hang on here, I used to think that I was a brilliant sporty person, but actually I was driving my son to rugby, driving my daughter to soccer, taking the kids swimming, but I wasn't doing any of these things. And it was actually one of your fellow business all-stars, Mark O'Dwyer, with something on in Fitzwilliam Tennis Club there a year ago. And I used to love playing tennis when I was young, but I was driving the kids to tennis for the last 10 years. I wasn't doing it myself. So on his saying, Elaine, I want to hear about, the next time you take up a tennis racket. Actually, I went and I joined 2 tennis clubs the following month. And 2 to 3 nights a week now I'm playing tennis.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes it's, you'll cross paths with somebody for a particular reason. And for me, that was totally outside my path crossing, do you know what I mean, with Mark at the time. And he was saying, you need to get back into tennis, do this, that. And now I've great joy. I said, Mark, I compete in this open week and I did that and I'm going up a grade
That's brilliant, yeah. Because I definitely have that thing where you get up in the morning, like I got up now at 7:20 this morning. I'm like, it's so early.
When you're coming back from holidays, that's different.
Yeah. But then doing the routine in the morning, breakfast, kids, drop-offs, whatever, going to work, come home, dinners, clean up, tidy up, get ready for bed. But it's like bang, 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 bang. Okay, hit the bed and gone.
And you're wrecked.
But it is good to actually think about implementing, especially as one might be even heading into the winter, implementing some routines in the evenings just to get you through the week.
And it might only be 2 evenings a week, but just doing it and having, I won't even call it a purpose, but, something for yourself, And what's very important too is to be able to say no to things as well, because you might be asked to go on this committee or do this or do that. It's respecting your time and having value for your time and energy, I think is very important as well. And do what makes a difference to you. Like, I love doing certain things, like I'm involved, say, in our local, rugby club, and I'm one of these team mothers on a Sunday morning that brings the sandwiches and whatnot. And I love that. And it makes me feel really good, and likewise when you go to another club and you get that same hospitality or not, you can reflect on it. But it's about a mix of all of this, I think, which is so important, and it's taking a step back then realizing how fortunate you are that. And one thing that people can get so hung up on, and I'm saying this simply because I was at one stage, is getting hung up on the money and the finances and everything like that. It's amazing. Like, money is energy going around in the universe, and it's amazing if you focus on doing good and providing a good product or service or being a good person, how that'll follow. I won't say I can't explain it. It's not like, the book, The Secret, that you sit back and everything will happen for you and you imagine, you visualize. That's so important as well. But you need to be taking actions for these things to happen.
But for someone who at one stage was put in a situation where they're in financial difficulty, whether the word is misled or misguided or whatever, you're in that situation. How do you kind of just mentally get out of it where you can be saying, years later, focus on the passion, not on the money?
I suppose I'm lived experience of it and I'm learned experience. And, I made some of the best mentors along the way, and I was never afraid to ask for help. I think that's a big thing. And even like down as recently, we bought our dream home 2 years ago, and just say, things were going to auction and getting finance and different things in place very quickly. And without mentioning names, I was able to reach out to certain individuals for help that helped me make it possible. Now, I'm financially, made it all happen myself, but just
in terms
at the
of
right time, just
making
even
you believe in yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I have a voicemail that I've saved in my phone from a particular gentleman that's extremely famous in Ireland, and he was said to me, Elaine, he goes, look, if, and when he knew that, jeepers, would I get this mortgage over the line by a certain date to make it happen? He said, look, Elaine, if you need a bit of more petrol for the tank, sure, I'll help you along the way. Not that I was ever going to call him in, but the fact that somebody had that belief in me, then to feel that, oh my God, that would spur me on even more, to get there or to do that,
Wow. It's just great to have friends like that, isn't it?
It is, but it works both ways.
Yeah, that's true. It needs to.
It does. And sometimes, when I'd see an opportunity would come up for something, or to put somebody in a particular place or position, or if I knew this event was going on and so was going to be there, but I knew that somebody else needed to connect with them, it's about making those things happen. And I think, Kingsley Aiken says that it's serendipity. It's creating moments of serendipity when you're in the right place at the right time with the right people. But that doesn't just happen by chance. You have to create those opportunities as well,
And you were saying as well, which I thought was very, I wouldn't say poignant, but I don't think people realize it enough. When you're building relationships with people, it's not the effect that it'll have today or tomorrow. It's building a bridge for down the road.
Absolutely. And I think my grandmother, the great saying, so that, look, Holy God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you listen twice as much as what you speak. And that is so true. Like, how often do you go into a networking meeting or a function or an event, and straight away, whether it's out of nervousness or you feel you have to, it's like verbal diarrhea. It's talk. Whereas actually, it's maybe asking a question. And it's not like, how are you today? Saying, oh my God, tell me, is this, or just changing it up a little bit, but taking a step back then and listening, and absorbing it and taking it in, and it's amazing how that makes the other person feel. They feel that they're interesting, you're interested in them, you're being listened to, and you're valued, and all of those things really resonate, and you'd be surprised then down the line that person might be, say, God, anyone who does X, Y, Z, who could help me with that, and all of a sudden you're the person that comes to mind, and it's amazing how it can be years down the track when your paths have crossed with somebody that they'll cross back again because of how you left that person feeling. Not what you said to them or what you did to them, but it's how you made them feel at that moment in time.
So true. Yeah. So true. Again, there's a very good friend I've made who I first met at an AIBF event. And when I think back the first time we met, it's how that person made me feel, made me feel that what I was saying was interesting and engaged in conversation, where I can remember people that I've met at other networking events, outside of the AIBF, where I'm thinking to myself, they're not even listening to the question that they asked me.
Or that their folks or the eyes or something else.
Yeah, the eyes are darting elsewhere. Who's everywhere. More interested in the Garry in the room?
And it's not like a numbers game or this, business card confetti. It's like, who's genuinely interested. And you can, you're so much better off having only a handful of those people in your life than you are having thousands of followers who just, you know what I mean, who are there lurking and just watching you.
Yeah, true, true.
And it's about the genuineness of the interaction and of the friendship and of the engagement,
What sort of industries have you seen with AIBF members that are growing quite quickly now?
Okay, so you can look at it in a few different perspectives, right? So I've got a son who's 17 years of age at the minute. So he's obviously looking at what he's doing, after school and after that. And he said, right, hang on here. He loves working when his hands are working with his head, put it like that. So in other words, he's not a textbook guy, but he's very bright at the same time. And when I take a step back, and if I think of when my parents know you need to go to college, you need to study this and go into business or go into engineering or this, that or the other. Whereas if I take a step back now and if I look at, say, business all-stars who have made it, I'm not just talking about financially, but who are very, very fulfilled. There's so many in, we'll say the trades, it could be the electrical or whatever, but maybe on a commercial level, that have made it really well and are very happy and are doing what they love doing. You know, I read a story one time and it really mesmerized me that there was this person, they were a hairdresser and that was their passion for life. They loved it. They loved, you know, the transformation they could do with their customers. They loved seeing how happy they were when they saw themselves in the mirror at the end. And somebody came in and was talking about scaling their business and that they needed to franchise it and they needed to get in other people into cut hair and they could live the life away. And she was like, but I love cutting hair. You know, this is what I'm made to do. I love it. And they were like, oh yeah, but you don't need to do it anymore. Which is like, I love it.
But it's like the pizza we had across the road from here earlier today.
It's fabulous, yeah.
And the guy's so passionate about the pizza that he makes.
Yeah, and the thanks that he gave us in afterwards and everything like that, you know. And to me, that's success rather than, you know, the big multinational and the stock options and the shares and the buyouts and this, that and the other. There's definitely industries that are doing very well, you know, med, pharma, you know, that type of engineering side of things. But to me, success is the passion behind and seeing that coming through, you know, and leaving a legacy or, you know, or something that's having a positive impact on people's lives. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I love how you said fulfillment, because we were talking earlier before we started recording about 3 business people who are on very good salaries. They're, you know, 6-figure sum salaries and are so unhappy.
Yeah. So I was just fortunate enough recently to reconnect with 3 individuals who got much better leaving cert results than I did. But anyway, we went to college together and hadn't met since, you know what I mean? You know, there's a couple of other people that did the BCom my year in UL, but hadn't met. We happened to be at an event together. And I just, you know, I would always have assumed they would have got on so much better and this, that and the other than me. And when we were chatting, like, you know, one was working for a company based in Dublin, having to commute back into the office, this, that and the other, doesn't really love what they do, but sure pays the mortgage. The other guy, oh God, no, I don't like it, sure, it's a way of getting by, you know, sure, look, it's safe and I have my pension in there now, sure, I'll hang it out another. And I just felt so sad. I genuinely did, because they could be anywhere and it's just maybe not realising it, and maybe the word being institutionalised maybe can come up, but if you are in a role or a job and if you're not fulfilled, well, get out of it. You know, we're at practical full employment. There's something there for you. And we've seen so many people totally diversify in terms of industry and even go full circle back to doing something that they loved doing when they were 16, 17 years of age. And maybe they just went and did something else in college. You know?
But even probably what you did when you were trying to figure out what to do next, you went off and did other stuff.
You did other stuff,
you know, just to keep busy and learn new skills.
No, 100%. And for me, actually, it was when I had my firstborn, Jack, who's 17 now this year. And I did a business coaching course during maternity leave, because I literally, you know, not that I couldn't stand still, but I just needed to keep my brain occupied. And for me, that was a game changer. It was the first time in my life that I was learning things like, oh my God, what's my blind spot as a person? What's my Jahari window? What's the wheel of life? What's this? I didn't Jahari window, like, you know, what's going on out there that you can't see?
Okay.
You know, and just we all have a blind spot, you know, that somebody else might see in you, but I don't see in myself, you know, but just being able to stop and pause and reflect back and that. But also, like, the answers to everything nearly we have inside ourselves. So it's about getting somebody there to extract that from you, but getting you to reason, to verbalize them out. But even that coaching methodology is so important. And I think we'll all remember a really good teacher we had and a really good experience that we had, you know, and how all of a sudden we clicked with that subject or we clicked with that content or whatever it is, you know, and it's those people and those mentors and those environments, I think, that are the best people we can have on our journeys, you know. And I think every single one of us has the ability to be able to reach out and to choose a mentor. You know, what's the worst they can say? You have a 50% chance of yes.
Yeah, true. It's funny that you talk about the problem inside us as well, because I was reading up recently on this idea of the daily huddle, and it's where people meet maximum 15 minutes first thing in the morning. Senior leaders in a company, they stand up, so there's no sitting down and conversations happening. Everyone does a 1-minute quick update, looking ahead, not looking back, always looking forward. So what are they aiming for over the next 24 hours? But also, what are they stuck on? What's the problem at the moment? But no one is giving the solution, what they think is the solution, but actually talking out loud about what your problem is. Yeah. Your brain kicks in and starts trying to find the solution for you.
And as someone say, like, just spit it out, you know, just say it. And when you say it and you see it, but what's important there is having the right culture and the safe environment and feeling of saying it. And that creating that culture is so, so important, you know. I suppose historically there was a lot more, it's the wrong word, it's a strong word, is dictatorship type, you know, that, okay, the hierarchy is here. Well, this is the boss and this is the team down here. And Jesus, don't don't
There's
rip
still
the waters
buildings
there.
around that kind of exist with that style.
Exactly. But it's, what kind of a safe space can you have there that you can have an open, honest brainstorm? You can spit it out and you can critique it, but in a safe environment and way as well. And it's amazing the creativity that will come out in that. Like, I remember years ago, actually, this is something I hadn't thought about in years, that I delivered a keynote to the enterprise, to the transition year students that were doing an enterprise project. And just to show the difference in thinking styles, I had teachers on one side and I had students on another. Now, there was a couple of hundred people in the thing. And I held up a paperclip and I said, you've got 60 seconds on the clock. How many uses can you write down of that paperclip? Tick, 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 the clock goes off, right? I think it came to like 40 or 50 from the highest kids. And it was like from a thing to hang curtains to picking your nose to cleaning your ears. It was like just so abstract. The teachers were like 6, 8 things, and there were safe things and they were very different. But it just goes to show when creativity is allowed and your brain is allowed to just to think, and nothing is wrong. That was the whole brief, that look, whatever it is, if it'll work, it'll work, It could be to stitch something, to hold something together, It wasn't just for keeping paper together.
Yeah.
But it's amazing the difference, how we can be dumbed down. And what I just encourage anyone to do is just to think as creatively as you possibly can.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that exercise now. I must through it because I actually held all the answers and I was like, oh my God. There was somebody that actually had it as an aerial for like a TV, a little mini aerial thing, or whatever. A lightning rod was for something else. But it just shows again, like when your mind feels safe and your creative juices flow, it's amazing what can come out of it.
Yeah, because we were talking earlier as well, because I don't know, did I say at the start, but you came in here at 12 p.m. We only sat down at 4 p.m. to start the podcast recording. So there's loads of chats before the actual recording started.
Good fun.
But it was this thing of, if you're in an organization and every time you bring in an idea or suggestion to the table, if it keeps being knocked back, you just close up and you stop. You shut down.
And then that festers and, it can fester inside you, and that can have such negative consequences for yourself as a person, not feeling heard and valued. And then what happens is you can bring that home into your family life, but even into your work life, there can be transference to your work colleagues as well. So it can really dumb down creativity, but confidence as well.
Yeah. What has it been like putting on these big All-Ireland Business Foundation events in the likes of Croke Park, the Aviva Stadium? You have your Christmas event, you go around, you do regional events in the country. What has it been like taking it from yourself and Capil, having an idea of trying to support businesses out there, give them a platform to shout from, to these big events?
Not for the faint-hearted. I'm in that caveat, right? So I suppose our first event was the All-Ireland Entrepreneur Summit in Croke Park. We just had our 11th year. For us, I think the 10-year anniversary last year was such a milestone, because in that cycle, we've seen so many other events come and go. We've seen a lot of competitor events and competitor in a friendliest sense, but other events come and be scaled down or scaled back, or, different things happen. I'm delighted to say ours have gone from strength to strength. We take over Croke Park, the Hogan Suite, all of that area every year for the summit. We've about 500, 600 companies plus involved every year. But for me, it's saying, hang on here, what would be value for me to take a day out of my business? So you've got your own time extracting from your business. You've got the energy and effort of getting to the venue. Plus you've got the financial cost of attending it as well. Yeah. So what would make it benefit and value to me that at the end of the day, I said, you know what, that was a really good day. It's not just that I'm on a high going out the door, but that I'll take stuff back. So for me, it's like, okay, I need high energy. I need atmosphere. I need the right people. I need decision makers in the room, people that own and understand the purse strings of a business. So in other words, if I need a decision, they're people that have the power to make a decision. The second thing is, okay, do I want entertainment? Of course I do. I'd like a bit of upbeat and lift and to be engaged. I need something that I'm involved in and I'm moving in. But I also need to know, hang on here, what's going on in the environment? What's going on in the economy? That type of understanding. I think business and sport is a huge part of things as well. And we can learn so much from our sporting personalities, and so many of the lessons that we can learn, say, on the pitch or whatever that sport is. How can we take those back into our business lives? Consistency is one of them. Teamwork is another one, Striving for that 1% better is another one. Having a goal in mind. These are all accolades and attributes that are equally applicable in business as they are in sport. Let's listen in from some of our top athletes and hear what they have to say and take learnings from them. But also, do you know what? I'm a business owner. I'd like to see and hear from a business owner that's maybe done what I want to do. Maybe hear from the experts that'll give advice on how I can go about doing it. But not somebody that's so out there that I really feel it's so unachievable and I'll never get there. But somebody that's, you hang on here, it's within my reach or arm's length what they've done. And if he can do it, you know what? Why can't I aspire to be even, a fraction along that journey as well? So it's combining all of those things. But also one thing that I felt is important is, yes, networking, bringing that in throughout the day, but setting a real friendly tone. You've no business coming to one of our events if you're not open-minded, open to new opportunities and willing to have conversations with people. I think that's so important. And it's like a parachute, it's lovely when it's in its rucksack, but it'll only work when it's open.
Yes.
And likewise, if your mind is open going into an event, whatever that is, it's amazing how it'll work for you. But also, we love to give companies the opportunity to showcase their business or their product or their service in our exhibition area and our partners area at the summit as well, Plus, it gives our all-stars and those that come and support the summit the opportunity to say, hang on here, you mentioned there, Garry, earlier about, upskilling and new courses and programs. We will always make sure we've got education partners there, such a skill, and it's such a solace, such a skill to advance, so that if you do have a requirement of upskilling in a particular area, well, there's people there that can support you and facilitate you on that journey.
Yeah, the variety of accredited businesses in it is amazing.
No, it is, yeah. And of different legs of the journey and different stages of careers and everything. Yeah, that's one thing that I suppose really I take great sense of pride in it. I know all of our management and leadership team do as well. And I know when Kapil and I step back, at the end of the year, whatever, we look and you know what, like these are the different industries, and with this industry this year, and God, I didn't even know that type of a business existed. But it's just, it's so refreshing because there's always somebody that we can refer to somebody else within our network and within our tribe. Yeah. And that's brilliant. You might have somebody saying, you know what, I'm after getting the opportunity to take up, there might be somebody, an electrical contractor, maybe to do something in a data centre in Norway. Is there somebody that you can recommend or whatever that can help me take care of all the legalities? And said, oh, yes, we're partnered with the Move Group. We can introduce you to them. Or so we said, God, any good, say, tax accountant that give me advice on my pension and how I can make sure that I'm protected as the business owner here because my son is coming into the business and how do I exit? Definitely, there's 2 or 3 here that I can refer you to. So that level of connection, connectivity is, I absolutely love it.
And it's like any membership, really. You have to make use of it. You can't expect it just to work magically for you in the background. You got to be proactive.
Come here to me. It's like buying a gym membership and just expecting you to get fit and energetic and never going inside the door. And never going inside the door. Do you know what I mean? It's like something like that. You have to put it to use. So whatever it is you do comes back to the word commitment as well. Commit to it. Yeah. If you want to, say, go back to sport like I did to tennis, well, I've committed to a tennis partner. So I know that, I won't just be letting myself down and be letting them down. So just having an accountability buddy maybe is another way of putting it as well.
Yeah, and if you are starting out in business, maybe get another friend or someone you meet along the way who's also starting out in business, and 2 you tag along and go to, like, the regional AIBF events are free to attend.
Absolutely, they're complimentary obviously for our business ulcers, but for any, local business person in the region as well, because I know the value and the support and how it feels to be invited into something, welcomed, but to actually, it'll give you great energy and confidence as well. And our content at the regional entrepreneur meetups and gatherings, Garry, because you've been a panelist at ours as well, is, hang on here, our content is made up from our business all-stars, be it companies that bought, that sold, that expanded, that had an issue, that are leading the way in a certain thing, whatever that is. And we interview them, we've fireside chats, we've keynotes, we've panel discussions. So everything is so relatable, and you can have chats with these people and follow up with them afterwards as well, and that's the beauty about it.
Yeah, like I've seen people over the years who've come in just starting out in business, very shy. I can relate 100%. I was like that starting out as well. And you see them now years later and they come in and...
the air of confidence and
fantastic.
Like coming in the door. And that's something that's brilliant. And even one thing now for me in particular was at our Galway Entrepreneurs Meetup last year.
Sure, they're the best.
There was, of course, you had to say that. But I remember there was a particular lady and she doesn't like public speaking. And she said, whatever you do, don't call me up on stage. So she was the only person who's a accreditation was being acknowledged on the day that wasn't coming up on stage. And I just saw her and I saw the confidence and I saw, hang on here, she's actually going to be more noticeable being left out than she's actually coming up on stage. So I read her body language a little bit and I didn't tell her to come up, but I just planted the suggestion. 2 seconds later, she was standing on the stage holding the microphone. And at the end of it, she said, oh my God, I can't believe you made me do this. And I was just thinking, and everyone started laughing. And she was actually flourishing. And she was like, she was really enjoying it.
Yeah.
And she's, to this day, like this is 12 months down the line, she said to me, I can't believe I got up on stage and I did it. And what was even better was that my husband and son were in the room as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Continued success with all the fantastic work that you, Capel, everyone, the team, Kieran and so on are doing at the All Ireland Business Foundation.
And that's the thing, we've got a fantastic team behind us, it's and they've been with us for years. You know, to give a special mention as well to, I suppose, our head of operations, Jennifer Kiley, who's been like, she's just behind everyone. There needs to be systems and methodology, but somebody holding us all to account.
Well, she's the
Jennifer's
first big smile always get when you turn up at an event.
Yes, she'll always have your name badge and delegate pass there. But we've got a fantastic support team. We've got a media team, graphics, web support, all of that behind the scenes. So if I start going to mention one, I leave somebody out.
That's why I stopped when I did
exactly.
Because I'm definitely going to leave someone out. But no, thank you so much for coming to Galway today to visit GK Media Studios and continued success with all that you do at AIBF.
Delighted to be here, Gary. And look, if anybody would like to learn more about our work or how they can be involved in AIBF, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love to get the message. Make sure and say, do you know what I mean? Just drop us a message or whatever. But just jump on to aibf.ie. You'll learn about the accreditation process and maybe you could be one of the next Business Soul Stars joining the tribe.
And you have a podcast as well.
That's right. Every single week I just get down in conversation with one of our Business Soul Stars. Very short snippets, 10 or 12 minutes, but it's getting an insight maybe into their business and their working lives.
Brilliant. So check down. What's the name of it?
AIBF Business Talk Podcast.
Perfect. Elaine, thank you so much for joining me.
Great to be here, Gary.
This is a GK Media podcast.